And let's begin with a bow. Maybe we could all raise lungta as well. Be a nice thing to do. Good, well, welcome everyone. It's nice, all these familiar faces. It's great. So I'll just tell you this is the fourth of 4 calls, and the first 3 had anywhere from 20 to 29 people on them. And this being a Wednesday morning in North America might be a little bit harder to attend. So maybe that's why, but there's only 6 of us, but it's just perfect. This is really great, especially for such a challenging and intimate conversation. Oh, we have another joiner. That's, oh, Victoria. Victoria, we're recording. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, and if there's something that you want to say that you don't want recorded, let me know and I'll push pause and then back. Okay. So we just bowed in, and with a smaller group like this, I think we can do kind of a regular check-in. The last one we had 29 people, so I asked people to just do a 5-word check-in. But I think you can tell us how you're doing, which would be wonderful to hear. So tell us your name, what your post is at your center. I think we have all center directors here actually. And then just how you're doing. And then we'll begin our conversation about council conflicts. So I'll just call you as you are on my screen. And so we'll start with John David Smith.
Hi, everybody. I'm co-director in Portland, Oregon, and I'm feeling good. Starting to think about a town hall coming up where we're stirring the pot and doing a review of where we've been, looking at our relocation efforts and doing spontaneous insight for some important council positions, and maybe social presencing theater, which is kind of scary.
Great, thanks, John. And Keith.
Sure. I find I'm waking up in the middle of the night for a couple of hours, and just not able to sleep with things to think about for the center. So it's a bit tiring for sure. Sometimes I'll lie down for a nap, try and get some sleep, and my eyes relax, which is a good thing. My eyes feel tired, but it's not long after I lie down for a nap that my mind starts going around again. So yeah, so making progress though. Thank you.
Keith is the co-director in Fort Collins.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, good. And Lou.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lou Kennelly, and I'm the director in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We did try a sort of steering committee for a while, but we didn't have a lot of people willing to step up into that long term. And so I'm the guy, right? And I've been director since October 1, but I'm certainly not new to service and being on policy council and those sorts of things. this is the first one of these that I could make because of just other things going on whenever the other calls. So I'm really happy to be here. I don't know if I have really policy council issues. So I'll be doing a lot of listening because a lot of you probably have a lot more experience than I do, maybe. But what I will say is, in becoming director, I made it contingent on 100% support from my policy council and from the community, and I got that. So I feel pretty good about where I am in that regard, in terms of feeling like everyone is, like we're a team for the most part, and everyone's got my back and everyone's ready to commit. And I sense, and I think other people have expressed this, a real uplift in Lungta and energy, and going forward. And probably my biggest concern, which doesn't have a lot to do with council, although it certainly would include working with council, especially practice and education, is a difficulty in filling Shambhala training levels of all kinds. On the other hand, we've been doing a lot of Buddhist talks and Buddhist training on purely Buddhist topics, and those have been extremely well attended, and there seems to be a real appetite. We just did a weekend on the Three Lords of Materialism with Acharya Melissa Moore, and very well attended, and yeah, that seems to bring people in. Shambhala training, it's tough. It's a real challenge right now.
Great, thanks, Lou. And Carol?
Hi, I'm calling from the St. John's, Newfoundland group. We're not a center, we're a group. So I'm calling my title group coordinator since about 2 weeks. So I could identify with Eric about the not staying asleep, waking up with all these ideas and trying to be inclusive, trying not to run ahead of the rest of the counselors who, some of them are kind of tired and not engaged. So trying my best. We're having a community meeting tonight, and I don't have my report written down on paper yet, but I felt it was more important for me to attend this Zoom call and get more up-to-date, enthusiastic ideas. And whatever happens, I still have a couple hours to write the report. We are, for the first time this year, doing Shambhala Training Level 1 this weekend. So we have Christine Hemming is flying in from Nova Scotia to do the Shambhala Training Level 1 Friday night and Saturday. And then Sunday, she's doing a talk on being Tara. And it seems like there is some registrations coming in, and some new people whose names I don't even know, who somehow their friends told them how good it was to be in Shambhala. So I'm very optimistic. It seems like recently when we have our Wednesday night sitting and our Sunday morning sitting, that we have newcomers showing up, and they've gone on the website, and so they're coming there for a purpose, to learn how to meditate and to meditate. And so for me, there's something in the air, and it's very exciting.
Great, thank you. And how about Sue? We'll let Victoria finish her breakfast.
Yeah, I had to stop the video for a minute to finish my lunch. So yeah, I'm in Atlanta. I've been the interim director for 6 months. Our story is that basically our council imploded. And so at the time I was one of the Shastris, And so the people who were left on the council and the two Shastris kind of rose up and created a transition team. And that's what we've been working with along. I have to laugh, Lou, because when I agreed to do this, I made the same demands. I told them all that I had to have very real support, and that the most important thing was that we have fun, and that I am the person who determines whether or not we're having fun. So far that it's going fairly well. It's kind of starting to thin out a little bit, but it lasted for a while. So our situation is, Atlanta's started out in an incredibly stable position before all this happened. So we're not about to shut down or anything like that, but it is very precarious. Our membership is made up of mostly newer-ish people. And our, Sadhakas are just a handful of folks, really. And so there's quite an interesting division there in the direction that people feel like we need to go. And so I'm constantly dealing with that and trying to balance that and give that space and figure out how to negotiate all that territory. The programs are way down. Program attendance is way down. We're doing more Buddhist classes, and that does seem to be better. Getting people to come to Shambhala anything is almost not happening. So yeah, I guess that's the basic story over here. I do a little bit of that, waking up in the middle of the night and going, uh-oh, na-na-na, as well, yeah.
Great, thanks, Sue. Hi, Lisa. We're recording again, and if there's something that you want to say that you don't want recorded, let me know and I'll pause it and then put it back on, okay? And we're starting with a check-in here. Victoria?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Victoria Higgins and I'm the Center Director in Toronto for about the last 7 months. And I feel really good right now because Acharya Christy Cashman was just here for a 4-day Vajrayana retreat that just made me so happy. It magnetized virtually all of our tantrikas, sort of all, Trungpa Rinpoche students and Sakyong students, and we had the whole center, different practices going on in different shrine rooms. And she spent the 4 days in so many different ways, reminding us who we are and reminding us of our roots as Buddhists, and really weaving in, like really kind of reminding us that Shambhala Buddhism is Buddhism. And, going right back to the time of the Buddha and all the way through with Hinayana and Mahayana into Vajrayana, and finally spending the last day just talking all about death and dying and how we care for each other when we die. But it just, I think it's going to be huge for our community in terms of the lungta of our tantrikas and really, yeah, just kind of that reminder of who we are and what we're really doing here. I think was so important for us. She did do one of the mornings of the 4 days. She opened up to the whole community and did a white Tara, taught about visualization practice and did a white Tara for the whole community. So our shrine room was more full than I've seen it in years for that. So I'm hoping that will be a bit of a turning point, because I think my main challenge as center director has been just the low lungta of the community, and then getting anyone to step into any kind of leadership position has been almost impossible. I have a very small council. I don't have conflict on my council right now because there's like 5 of us, and there's, you know, people tend to agree with each other, but the bigger problem is it, like, really, how do I kind of inspire more people to be involved and take on leadership positions? And I want conflict on council. I mean, I worked with Richard Rioch for years in the South Council, and his approach was always to bring in people who had different perspectives and find the people who have conflicting views and actually bring them on the inside and have those conversations. And I so much saw the value in that in working with Richard, and I don't really have that. I make suggestions to council and everyone says, that sounds good. And I'm like, no, we need to be, talking about this. So I think it's a Lungta issue is the main issue that I'm dealing with, but I feel really good right now coming out of that retreat.
Wow, great. Thank you, Victoria. Great. And Lisa.
First of all, I apologize for my tardiness. I'm ill and I didn't even look in my book this morning. But then I saw that I could hop on, so here I am. Check-in. We had a members meeting on Sunday that is part of a longer term process where it feels quite healthy that people are wanting to discuss where they feel the main areas of growth need to be, or clarity, or setting out an appropriate current path for our center. And those are in 3 areas. One is about governance, actually, how we're going to structure ourselves. Another is addressing harm that has occurred in Philadelphia and how we can work with that. And another is how we relate, well, governance also as related to what is our relationship to international. And then the third area is lineage and teachings. So it's a really interesting time to be director because, you know, for a long time, and I'm on the way of, I'm close to rotating out. I will be rotating out on Shambhala Day and have been in my seat since before the current upheaval. So it's been quite a tenure. You know, there's been this play back and forth between how do we open out for maximal transparency and also community voice, you know, integrating community voice, and how do we get things done? And that's this fundamental tension that's happened where, you know, there's a sense of people in the community wanting to, you know, do listening circles and all of that kind of thing, which we've been doing ad infinitum, but not wanting there to be any top-down anything. And so even when we did the report a couple of weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, we did a report with the people who had been involved with the revenue generation training, which was a 6-week, pretty intensive training that people in Philadelphia, 6 of us stepped up to do. And we reported to council and to everyone else on our finance team. People were like, well, how are we presenting this to the community? And, you know, have we made these, are these actual decisions that we made? And some of them just are real brass tacks, like, how are we going to survive? So I guess that remains a challenge here. But we've also been working with, we had Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams not long ago, end of October, and that was very powerful in the community. And like the Christy Cashman event, really we had more people in our shrine room than we've had in eons. And So I find that very interesting, that people really are galvanized around how we're working with issues that are contemporary in our culture altogether, and how do we find good guidance for that. So we just had a very interesting follow-up event with someone local who's involved with that as well. So I probably have taken more than my share of time, but those are the things that come up right off. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Good. Okay, so I'm Cynthia McKay, and I think we all know each other now, but I'm the Deputy Minister of the Pillar of Government still. And you're all in the Pillar of Government. You might not know that, but you are. And I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just kind of here, holding, waiting, watching, hopefully supporting people. I'm in Northern Ireland right now, in a town called Derry/Londonderry, and both of those names for the town are really important and signify something, which I haven't completely figured out yet. But I think if you call it Derry, you're a loyalist to the Union, you know, to a 32 county Ireland. And if you call it Londonderry, you want these 6 counties in Northern Ireland to stay with Britain. So that's what I figured out, which was the crux of the Troubles. So I've been reading a lot about it, and then people are saying, have told me, I was in Ireland too, and saying, if people call it, listen to what they call it, and then you'll know who they are. And so if they say, oh, welcome to Derry, then I know that they're a loyalist for Ireland, a whole republic, I think. And if they say Londonderry, then they want, you know, to stay with England. And it's really fierce. I was in a restaurant the other day for lunch in a little town on the way here, and the woman said, well, where are you off to next? And the server, and I said, oh, Derry/Londonderry. And she said, you're going to Derry. I said, okay. And she told me again as I was leaving, remember, you're going to Derry. So it seems very important to them. But it's very nice here. So I was just telling John, I decided to stay a couple more days here in the same place, and then I travel home on Tuesday morning. So it's nice to be in one town it'll end up being almost over a week that I'll have been here, but it's a really beautiful little town with a river and lots of good running, and I can catch up on my work, and it's great. So that's me, and it's so nice to see you all and have all center directors. Carol, I know you're a group coordinator, but same, you know, you're the leader. There's a lot of our centers that are being governed by councils now. So John has been sending these invitations out for me, but he's been sending them. We sent them to all the council because I don't know which centers are being run by councils. So we just sent the invitation to all councils. So the last 3 calls have had a number of various council positions on the calls, which have been great as well. But to have all center directors here for this council conflict call will be interesting, and all in North America, which is interesting. So anyway, great to see you all. And I wanted to have this topic because it's important. And Victoria, I love that you said to welcome the conflict. That's a great way of looking at it. I think we'll just stay in one discussion. Last time we broke off into 4 discussion groups, but we had about 30 people. So with this many, I think we can stay in one discussion. And I think we'll just open it up. You know, I get everything. I had lots of council conflicts when I was the center director in Los Angeles. And then I hear about a lot of council conflicts, everything over what to program, who to program, paint color of the community room. That's come up at a couple of different centers. which turns into a real conflict about how to determine that, and lots of other things. So let's just open the discussion and see where we go. I want to leave it kind of open. I don't have an answer, which I don't think any of you expect me to have, but I think we can just talk a bit, and I'll host this conversation. So if anybody would like to begin.
This is Victoria again. I thought I could get in a little bit to what Lisa was talking about, except Lisa just disappeared. Oh no, you're right there. How did you disappear? In terms of, Lisa, what you brought up was this tension around community decision-making versus kind of what decisions can you make as leaders. And I think that's a really interesting question right now, because I certainly came into this role with a lot of tension in my own mind about, you know, should they, like, what is a center director? Should there even be a center director? You know, am I more of a facilitator? How do we, like, there's so much anxiety right now about hierarchy and power, and you know, how do we, but then how do you get things done? So I thought I would just give one example of that, which had to do with finances. So we had our council meetings aren't open, and there was some discussion about that before I became director about making the council meetings open so that anyone from the community could join them. And I, in the end, decided instead of doing that to create some member-at-large positions on the council and see if we had any members who just wanted to be on the council, but not in any kind of a, to take on a volunteer role, but just to be a member on the council. And I only got one person interested, and she joined the council, but I did that instead of having open council meetings. I think because of this tension that you brought up, Lisa, about how do you make decision? How do you know, in the end, we actually have to decide things, and how do you balance that with community input and who all is involved in that decision? So we now have a member at large on council, and I'm really trying to make the council kind of more of a broader group. But we had a decision that came up. Our treasurer proposed us giving a large donation to Shambhala International. This was back in the summer. Our treasurer proposed donating 10 grand to Shambhala International. And the council discussed it, and what the council ended up deciding they wanted to do was donate slightly less, give a $5,000 donation to Shambhala International, but to increase our monthly transfer from $750 to $850 a month. And I really didn't know, like, I didn't know how the community would react to this, but I knew that we had to be transparent about it, that we couldn't just do this and not engage the community at all, or not tell them, because it could make people angry, because people had come to me saying, I don't want my membership dues going to Shambhala International. But in this particular instance, we decided just not to make it a community decision, to make it a council decision, but to tell the community what we Sorry, I got muted, didn't I? So I right away wrote a letter to the community and gave them the details on our financial situation, told them that we made the decision, told them to email me if they wanted to talk about it, and I also said, I'm going to be at the center on this night at this time, and I want to talk to anyone who wants to come and talk to me about finances or about our relationship with Shambhala International. And I thought that I was going to get some pushback, and I didn't. Like, one person emailed me and said, oh, we should have given more. And 3 people showed up to talk to me about finances, but they really just wanted to understand it better. So I don't know what the point is to that story, except to say that, like, I totally get where you're coming from in terms of wanting to balance this kind of community input with how do we actually make decisions. And that was just one example where we decided just to make the decision, but to be transparent about it with the community rather than inviting their input. So I would also be really interested to hear about other people's experiences with that kind of thing in this time period where there's so much tension around hierarchy and power.
Thanks, Victoria. I'm just going to introduce Ed from Baltimore, Interim Director, right, Ed? Ed Hargaden.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm not actually the interim director.
Okay.
We have created what we refer to as a steering team, which is an operations committee.
Okay.
And I'm the chair of that. Then there is a leadership collective, which is composed of 4 people who essentially work with the community to establish priorities. And as the steering team chair, we basically effectuate what it is that the community decides.
Great, thanks, Ed. And then Amy just joined us from Halifax, interim co-director. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then we have all directors now on the call. Well, Ed, I understand your piece, but so we have John David Smith in Portland, Oregon, Keith in Fort Collins, Lou in Albuquerque, Carol in Newfoundland, St. John, Newfoundland, Victoria in Toronto, Sue Gilman, Atlanta, Lisa, Philadelphia, now Halifax and Baltimore. Okay, welcome. And sorry, Halifax and Ed and Amy, we're recording this, and if you decide that you want to say something that you don't want recorded, let me know and I'll pause the recording and you can speak. Otherwise, it's going to be recorded. Okay, thanks, Victoria.
I'm taking some light notes in a Google Doc, which you are all welcome to add to or to supervise in case I mishear or misrecord whatever you've said. I'm really going for, just highlights that seem interesting for possibly other people to look at. And you can all write to it, and then at the end of the call, I'll change the permissions so that nobody can write to it. So it's kind of sealed.
And the link to that is in the chat box. Okay. All right, sorry, go on, carry on. Sorry about that.
So what you were talking about, Victoria, we have a similar situation happening right now. 2 things. We've been creating a charter, a governance charter for how we are going to conduct business. And it's been very slow, but we're progressing along. And where we are right now is at the part of how we make decisions. As we call ourselves a transition team. That's what we are, and we're very small, and therefore also really don't have any conflicts in that team in this current situation. So the next thing that we do after we do our decision-making agreements is we are then going to do communication agreements, and then we'll be filled out. And I think that what we'll do then is take all of that to the community, say, these are the decisions we've made about how we want to function, how much of this do we want to expand into the community and make it a back and forth kind of thing. Sorry, all of a sudden I'm kind of hoarse. But we have the very same thing about sending money to SGS has just come up. And so when as a transition team, we decided, we stopped sending money. I guess it was sometime, I don't know, maybe sometime in the summer. I'm not exactly sure when. And no, it was long before that. It was before I came on. And so now the transition team has met and said, you know, we've got to start sending money again because we're using these services and it's just not ethical, for one thing. And so I said, fine, but we have to take this to the community. We can't just make this decision. And that's really because of all the conflict and because of the issues around hierarchy and power. I've really been leaning in the direction of engaging the community as much as possible. And we have 2 members at large on our council, on our team. So what happened at the community meeting when we brought it up is you could feel the room just go, yeah, you know, like, because sending money to the Sakyang is like there's a huge group of people who I think they would get up and walk out the door, and that would be the end if we said we were going to do that. So all of this is going to bring that conversation to the point where I don't have to think or wonder. We're going to find out like where people stand on all that. But so the decision was made to take a small group of people and let them be a committee. And they're going to look at the facts and figures, and, you know, because part of the issue is that people, the general membership, they don't realize how much Shambhala Global Services is providing to the centers. I mean, they just, you know, why would they know? And so it will be educating for them, which I think is great. So anyway, this small committee is going to sit down and look at everything and come back to the community with some kind of recommendation. And I say I'm going to find out because we're going to do this. You know, I mean, we're going to do it. And so this may be the thing that I've been trying to give space to for the whole time I've been in here, which is just let everybody settle down, just let everybody settle down, let some of these emotions, you know. But I think that this may be the issue around which we find ourselves in conflict in a big way for the first time, really. We'll see.
I like the idea of having a charter. I was so surprised when I came in as center director that we didn't have a terms of reference for our council. Almost nothing is written up as a policy. And I would love to have more center policies, terms of reference, charters, things. I'd love to have access to more of those from other centers. I've looked all over the Shambhala network to see, but there don't seem to be any there. So if you, Sue, when you're finished yours, or if anyone else has governance charters or terms of reference for governance groups, it would be really helpful for me to see those, because it's something that we really need to develop.
Okay, that's great. We got incredibly lucky in that we have a newish member who this is her whole world. I mean, she's just a little genius in doing this kind of work. And so she is on the transition team, essentially in that role to help us organize ourselves and figure out, like, how we design all the community meetings and figure out how we're going to have the conversations and all that kind of thing, and just give structure and form to it. She's just a master facilitator. And so she's the one who's really been helping us through. But for Shelley, I don't even know where we'd be. So most definitely, I'm more than happy once it kind of finally lands to share. The other exciting thing that I'm finally...
So Sue, before you move on, could I ask, make a suggestion that, you know, it's not just the final product that I think would benefit Halifax or Portland, but the process and the kind of ethic of producing it. And I'm wondering whether you could invite Shelley to talk with us as a group about just how it's going from her perspective about, well, here's my assessment of where you were where Atlanta was when we started. Here's the things that seem to make a difference in this conversation. And here's where I think, you know, just as an informed professional, not the truth, but one person's view, and yours as well, we ought to go or are going. Because, you know, I feel like this is totally on Portland's agenda, and but it feels like, you know, an elephant that I and our community can't chew. You know, to be true to our roots and relevant and practical in today's social and political environment. Please consider that. I'll host it. And I bet you, and I know that Cynthia will too. You know, this is totally bread and butter. So John is shutting up right now.
The tricky part of that this Friday, she's quitting her job. And she's going essentially into more or less retreat for the month of December, which is very exciting, but it's going to make her a little less available over the next few months. So I'll see what I can, how magnetizing I can be around urging her to help us do that. You know, I could also just go back and look back at my notes and some of the process that we've been through and just start sharing some of that with people. I mean, that might be helpful in the short term. That might be helpful. And she'll be back in the saddle in January, and I know that we could get her to, you know, crank up a little bit more. Although it's entirely possible she's not going into a properly, you know, cabin retreat or something. So she might get bored, decide she needs a little project to work on. So we'll see. The other thing I was going to say is that we've also just now, our Ethics and Care Committee has presented to the transition team the draft of our Ethics and Care documents that we'll start. First, we'll, you know, mess around with them, and then we'll start presenting them to the community and working with them. So they've been working on that for ages. And again, we just are so fortunate that we have somebody she's HR for charter school and has been doing this work for years and just knows it inside out and has produced an absolutely beautiful document. So that just got presented to us last week.
Our council has avoided a few issues, and it possibly is why we're sort of in a frozen, stuck position. One area I'd like to explore is the chants that we do. You know, whether we do the longevity chant for the Sakyong, for example, and how it's maybe a conflict in my own mind, how we stay true to our lineage. At the same time, how do we appear to newcomers? We had 7 new people come to our center Sunday before last and 4 this Sunday. There's a continual flow of people, but when they go in to chant, they'll hear, I pay homage to the feet of the Rigdon King. A couple other lines that are like that that have to be curious to a newcomer, as well as the longevity chant for the Sakyong. There are still a number of people who sort of are hanging by a thread, I would say, on that issue. And so are we rubbing their nose in it week after week by continuing to do that chant? But for me, it's been an issue I've been literally afraid to bring up or wonder about.
Keith, I can tell you what we did in Albuquerque, and it seems to be working well. Because we have gone through a period of, it's like pulling teeth to get people to Umze for Sunday sitting. And we used to have Wednesday night sitting, which we actually had to postpone because we couldn't get somebody to show up at the center to do it. That seems to be getting better. Those regards, we're bringing Wednesday back. And we're having a new UMSE training coming up, which I think will be attended. But what we did is, because UMSE is a very widely dispersed group of either Vajrayana practitioners, to people who have been Shambhalyans for a while, to people who have just started on the Shambhala path and are interested in volunteering, that we have made it somewhat optional as to what chants the UMSE of the day would like to do. And what I have seen is, since we're a small center, we have the chants that that basically Shambhala gives to the small centers to do, right? That we're supposed to have in our chant book. And what I have discovered is people have no problem with supplication to the lineage and the homage, have no problems with Shambhala protector chant, or the invocation, or the long chant at the end. I never remember the name of it, that goes on forever and ever, that is actually quite beautiful. And so the only chant that really some UMSEs choose not to do is the supplication for the Sakyang, long life. And so what the UMSE will do is they'll tell the assembly what chants we're going to do. And, everyone who is somewhat experienced understands what's going on. And the newcomers really don't care what chants we do. They're, and they're always told that it's completely optional. You can sit and listen, you can join in, completely up to you. I know when I'm saying, I always say, and if you have questions about them, just catch me afterward and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So that's what really has worked well for us in that regard. And I don't think it's a problem, at least from our perspective. This is what we've agreed on. I actually think we're pretty fortunate. We're small. We have a membership, actually dues paying membership in the low 40s. And I've got like 10, 11 people on council active. So I think that's pretty good. We do have a couple of member at large people, but I'm really good about finding them jobs to do so that they can actually pretty soon have a title. They're no longer just member at large. And they've been quite willing to do that. And we also make it very clear to the community and community emails, member emails, that our council meetings are completely open and everyone is welcome and everyone is invited. And we don't get too many people. We have 1 or 2 people that are not on council that come to meetings on a regular basis because they're interested, but for the most part, no. And generally speaking, when the council makes a decision, and we report it to membership, for the most part, they're pretty much on board. If we think it's going to be controversial, we will send out an email and saying we are considering, like one of the things I'm going to bring up at the next meeting, we stopped our unified giving in June of 2018, which was sort of the day the problems started, right? And I think we're ready to start. And the reason I think we're ready is at our last Shambhala day, and we made it completely optional, we raised $2,000 to send to the mandala, which for a small center was actually pretty impressive. So obviously we have members that are comfortable with that. They understand, I think, that there are things the mandala does for us. And it's not really about, now, If we were sending it to the PO train, that might be a different story. But the new board has made it quite clear that that is becoming more and more separated with less intertwining. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, I guess that's what I have to say in terms of answering Keith and sort of explaining. We did have a short period of time after the last director stepped down, which was in June, where we did have an interim steering committee. And the community was supportive of that, but we made it quite clear we were interim and that the community, if they wanted to have an ongoing steering committee, people had to step forward to want to do that. And when our interim time ran out and no one stepped forward, that's when the community kind of supplicated that I become director, and I agreed to do so. And I think it's going pretty well so far. It's just been since October 1. But the other thing I started, because for about a year we had policy council meetings, often by email or and people submitting reports online and sort of meeting sporadically. And I wanted to have monthly in-person meetings because I think it's important for us to connect personally. And the council was like absolutely on board with it. So that was great.
Thanks a lot, Lou. Thanks a lot.
Carol has her hand up, and also Lisa had hers.
Hi, yes, I'd like to talk about council conflicts. I've been on the council here since March of 2016. March of 2017, sorry. I joined Shambhala in March of 2016. So by March, I had taken the first 3 Shambhala training levels, and I didn't know much about Shambhala, but I had a financial background, so they wanted me. And so I've been the treasurer up until now. Luckily, with the zero offer coming along, there's a young fella on the council who really is interested in learning that software. So that part is very good. The other members of council, some of them have been around for 5 or 6 years and they're not engaged. Some of them are new. Some of them feel like they know nothing. And one of them came back on council because she felt like, as the mother of the group, she had to make sure things went okay. So when we had council meetings and issues came up, there wasn't a lot of discussion. And when this seasoned person gave their opinion, everybody deferred to them. So there was no sense of discussion and having differences of opinion that you could work out the best solution for everybody. So the discussion was kind of not happening. Now that person has decided that they are going to retire from council within the next month or 2, which leaves us without a director of practice and education. So we will be dealing with that. One of the ideas which I floated earlier was, since there were so many new people, maybe we could have a 5-minute this is how to get to know Shambhala thing at the beginning of the council meeting. For instance, like, what are the 4 dignities? Because people don't know the basics of Shambhala and Shambhala culture, or if they did know them, they've forgotten them. And I know for me, it's hard for me to remember things at my age, so I really need a lot of repetition. We do have a terms of reference from 2015, which I'd be happy to share with Victoria. But when I read it, it seemed to be more like we're putting a boundary around the things that we will do, and everything else is outside what we will do, rather than empowering people to sort of move forward and take new action. So I wouldn't recommend using it as a model. I think the largest part of the whole terms of reference has to do with the nominating committee. And there's no reference to basic goodness in it. So you might take that as a negative example of terms of reference. I do have a quick question. I really agree with promoting what Shambhala Global Services does for us. And I do have a quick question, because we're doing an oath ceremony this weekend. And I had a question from somebody. Are other centers using the same oath as before? Because to me, it seems fine, but I just like other people's opinion. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll just say we have 2 versions now, Carol, and I can put you in touch with David Brown. And we have 2 versions of the director oath or group coordinator oath and 2 versions of the council oath. So people can choose which one they would like to do. Thanks, Carol. Lisa had also had her hand up earlier, but Victoria, well, Lisa, did you?
Well, I was just going to say that we just had a membership ceremony at the Harvest of Peace, and we did use the regular membership oath. I don't think there were any changes needed to it. I revised the director oath when I became director, but the membership oath seemed okay, I think.
At our center, well, I looked at Boulder and Denver. I often look at them for examples, and both of their websites have no reference at all to a membership oath. We still have a membership oath posted on our website as part of membership. But yeah, it's obviously an item in flux.
And we have an oath ceremony coming up, and I got with Cynthia and David Brown's help, I had the old oath. So we don't really do a membership oath, but for all of our people in positions, we're going to have an oath ceremony, and everybody has their choice which one they would like to do.
Lisa?
Yeah, I had some responses to earlier parts of the conversation. Trying to think what's important now. I feel like this is a moment where the ways that we're accustomed to having discussion about difficult topics don't serve us so well anymore. And that's why there's been so much research into, Theory U, where you'll put forward questions and prototype ideas and get feedback from people. And, maybe it's slow, but it's very much collective. Or, I was pointed to the model of dynamic governance, where also, something like what are we doing with global services? Are we supporting them or not supporting them? It's a kind of different way of approaching that conversation. But one of the really important aspects of that model is that everybody has the same information to start with. And I find that's really one of the challenges, because people will come into a conversation having either read a lot of social media or not having read, what the board has put out informationally. And, as Lou was saying, the fact that, there's been this separation of the Sakyong Putrang from global services. For us in Philly, that's what made it possible for us to reinstate our giving. We did also we actually put into escrow our transfers. And we were very public in our community about it because so many people had real issues. And but what we did was and there were people who were ready to leave on the fact that we were no longer giving to global services. So we're dealing with people on all the sides of every conflict, every continuum. We've got people on all the sides. And so the question has been continually, how do we remain a big tent? How do we make space for everybody? How do we find the balance? And so with the global services thing, we were very clear. We're not sending transfers for these reasons. And then at the point at which that separation was made, there was further accountability in what the finances were, because that was a real issue for our community. We didn't really know where our money was going. We said, okay, they've fulfilled these conditions that were problematic for us, and now council is making the decision to go back and make those transfers. So, and then we were very transparent about that. So that's how we worked with that one. I'm trying to think, chance, just in terms of just switching a little bit to conflicts in council. I think one of the things that's really hard is that at this moment, you know, we may be able to separate out our personal issues around what has transpired and just attempt to be really objective and really see what's going to most benefit this larger group of people in our community. But then there are moments when that's super hard, and we have one council member who's really flown off the handle in a lot of ways, and it's been difficult to function with someone who is just very dismissive, very negative about what we might do, where we are, and feels in a way like they're pulling things back. So I've had to actually make time to talk with this person and say, you know, I'm not sure that what you're saying is in the best interest of everyone here. And, you know, we need to accommodate where you are personally, but at the same time, as a voice of the community, it's really difficult to you know, hear the way you're expressing yourself. So that's really the main conflict we've been coming up with. And we also, you know, we've been working also on a care and conduct policy that's been local, and it's been put out for our wider community. But we have people on that committee who are really, you know, one of the people on the committee is a bully. And the policy is about not perpetrating emotional harm. So working with something like that, even though it's not council level, it's been really difficult.
So Lisa, how do you work with a bully who's kind of co-opted process?
Well, this has been reported back to me. I'm not sitting in that room. I'm not on that panel. But I mean, this is a larger question in our community that we have. Yep. You know, we have senior members of our community who are long time students and teachers who, you know, while not guilty of outright, you know, sexual exploitation, have had really questionable behavior, and there's been no way to deal with it. There's been no way to deal with it. No effective way to deal with it. And, you know, in some cases, things have been reported in the past to whatever care and conduct body there was, and there was no satisfactory response. So, you know, and it's been an interesting aspect of my tenure where I've had to say, no, I don't want this person in council. I can't work with them. They've been aggressive and abusive. So that's the only way, you know, just say, door is shut, sorry.
Takes a lot of guts on your part.
You know, it's so interesting. Like one of these particular people, I've known this person for 40 years, you know, and it's true. You know, I think it's like a little microcosm of what we're dealing with the Sakyong as well, that, you know, they've brought enormous benefit. And at the same time, so what do you do with that? You know, there are people who, you know, might want to reject someone out of hand. And then if you say, well, we're Sangha, we believe in basic goodness, and we are committed to working with each other, how do we do that?
Any ideas?
I feel like, I mean, this is not particularly useful, but it's a culture change, right? We're undergoing a change of our entire culture, and there's no way we're going to go through this without a lot of pain. And it seems to me that it's really going to take a long time. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to have a whole new world. I mean, it's a giant culture change for us.
Mhm. You know, one thing that strikes me, Sue, is that, and this part is that community and organization are entailed, you know, are kind of so interlinked in Shambhala that the community has to change and the organization has to change. And one can hold the other back, either one can hold the other back or help the other advance. But it's kind of like, as directors, we have to switch hats in this way that seems pretty challenging to me as a kind of organizational person, you know, with a kind of like manager's hat or leader's hat, and then as a member's, as just part of a culture. And seeing our way forward in either one is a bit daunting, let alone making sure that both of them somehow support the other moving forward. That's not helpful, but I think that that's the challenge that I think we face.
Yeah, just the only other thing I would say to that is I feel like having some of these social technologies, making use of some of these social technologies is really truly a way forward and has already benefited us to some degree, I think. I've been studying Theory U for several years, and it's not easy. But I feel like it's an example of a way forward that can be extremely helpful because, I mean, we're talking about, you know, moving this giant ship, which is what we are, right? We're this gigantic ship, and to shift a gigantic ship is a very slow and massive process. And so, I don't know, I just feel like there are methods out there that can help us. And I personally think Theory U may well be one of them.
On Theory U, I'm going to download the book called Humble Inquiry, and a way of asking questions rather than making statements and talking to people, talking at people. A way of humble inquiry, asking questions that come out of your own curiosity about this other human being that you're faced with. And how is it that you got where you are? What is your vision for what the center could be? You know, as I think Lisa already said, you know, reminding people of what is the larger view of maintaining a center that people can come and learn to meditate. How does it? Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get that book, and I'm hoping for some guidance in that. Theory U also has an empathy walk and something called stakeholder inquiry that I'm getting into. Nothing to report on that yet.
Can you share that book title or something, Keith?
Cynthia?
Yeah.
I think we're getting close to the end of our time. Is that true?
Yeah, it's these are scheduled for an hour and a half. So we have about 5 minutes, and then we'll do a quick checkout. Or is that okay with you?
Yeah, I just want to be bold and say that I personally would love to hear from Amy before we're done.
Oh, yeah, and Ed, sure. Yeah.
She hasn't spoken.
Okay, good. Amy, how about it? You want to say?
Sure. Thanks, Sue. So I'm still fairly new at this directorship thing. We're 2 months in, Meg and I doing our co-directorship, and we're still, when we're approached by the community or anybody asking about anything that could potentially be controversial, we're still saying that we're just trying to get our footing, but that it is on our minds and that we would like to move into things. But one of the conflicts that keeps coming up, and I get it in particular because I handle the finance, is past members or members that have lowered their dues when we took the pictures down, which still haven't gone back up. And that's another conflict that we're going through. But we're getting members essentially saying that, well, I'll make a large contribution. I'll start increasing my dues. I'll start giving, thousands of dollars if you put the pictures back up. And that's not how we're going to work. And I love the idea of in-person monthly meetings. I love the idea of bringing the community out to talk more and to share, and so that we can be more transparent in our decision making, so that our community feels like they're involved. We have a lot in Halifax, a lot of very outspoken members, and in the past these meetings have derailed very quickly. We've not been able to keep them reined in or keep them on track, and so it's really made it difficult for us to want to keep offering them, even though we see the value of them. So that is something that is also on our list for the new year, to start these up again and find some way of moderating them and keeping them respectful, and whether that's a listening circle or something. So that's where we are right now. We're still here. We're still running our programs. We're still keeping our doors open. We've got members that are coming back to us now. We did stop our unified giving for about 8 months when everything first broke open, but we have started back up again as of this past spring. At a lower amount, just because we were watching our own finances. But I do have a meeting set up with Global Services, because we're thankfully in the same city. I can go meet with them because we're also, our building in Halifax here, even though we're the Halifax Shambhala Center, we are housing a lot of we've got the lovely Mr. Brown here in our space. So we are looking at ways of non-monetary funding, ways of supporting unified giving, so that perhaps some of their use of our space goes towards our unified giving amount or in some way. So that's a discussion that I'll be having with David McClellan next week. So we're here. We're still here.
Great, thanks, Amy. Ed, do you want to say anything?
I think that it's kind of interesting. We just had we have this process in Baltimore, which we're still in the infant stages of. We're calling it Leadership Collective, but it is a form of community discussion, which is premised a lot on the Quaker method of decision making. And we've had 2 meetings so far. The last one was really very powerful, and we just dealt with the issue of fear and sitting with that fear, and the way in which it freezes us. And it sort of dawned on us that a lot of the challenge, if you will, is to engage the community to actually be able to come together with that fear. I mean, this is a small group that met, but we've had conflict, particularly when everything was kind of falling apart, and then with the before the separation of SGS from the Potron, we had a lot of conflict about it. And since the financial situation was two accounts were separated on the international level. We've gotten some members back, but what I'm realizing is that there were a lot of people who were either in that who were either upset, who rather than sort of work with it left. So the irony is that our meetings now are really not, they're not really conflicted, but we're not really working with and attracting the people who maybe were not particularly happy before because they've left. So we're in the process of reaching out, but it sounds a little bit backwards, but we're not really having conflict right now, but that's because the people who were upset are gone. And, you know, it would actually be a good sign if we did have some conflict more, because then we would know that we've gotten those individuals who were quite upset. Nevertheless, I think that we've adapted. We've adapted like the chants. We're doing a lot what Lou said. Just I think Lou, you had said where we sort of create the options for people to use different chants. We have the Heart Sutra in our chant book. We have supplication of Takpo Kagyus, that's in there, and then we allow the UMSI to just sort of designate which chants they're going to be leading, along with the classics, if you will, or the Shambhala chants. So I can't say anything more than that we are in a state where we're going to be readdressing issues that we kind of tabled just because there were too much hot button issues, and the one primarily is to reinstate the giving to the center of the mandala. We had stopped, and I know that Jennifer, our director, has said that she wanted to begin a discussion about that, and I would probably say that we're a ways away from even talking about putting the pictures back on the wall. I'm not sure that we're near that yet, but so that's kind of where we're at. The group that's actually working together is pretty harmonious, and the community isn't, I guess, to the extent that we would have a lot of participation in community meetings previously. The people that come, it's a much smaller group. Plus side is our membership has gone up. The membership has increased, and we made a concerted effort to go back and talk to people who had stopped giving before, and some of them have renewed their memberships or increased their memberships even. And a lot of it is because in response to separating the SGS from public training, they were very receptive to that and agreed to come back in, not necessarily in a heavy participatory fashion, but at least giving money still.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Maybe Amy's people can pay you extra money to put your pictures back. Vote with your dollars, huh?
Ed, is there some written information about the Quaker method of meeting or reaching decisions?
A lot of it is, I'm not Quaker, haven't been Quaker, but how it was explained to us by a couple of the folks on the Leadership Collective who have been, one of them still is Quaker, was that there is, the wisdom sort of comes from the folks within the meeting, and there is a lot of space, and people will speak when they're inspired to speak, and there's virtually no crosstalk in the beginning, and that process might go on for 45 minutes or so. And then there will be, at the end of the meeting, a discussion about what was referred to as the sense of the meeting. What does it seem like the community is coming to some kind of resolution? It's basically a consensus process, but it intentionally uses space as a way in which to allow wisdom to arise. And we really did it for the first time this past week. It was really very powerful. And it was illuminating because we were allowing to just sit ourselves into fear, because that was the topic, and the fear of our center, the future of our center, the future of Shambhala, and not to run away from it, but just to kind of sit there terrified and then kind of think about some solutions toward the end. But it was good because in the past we've just sort of been very nuts and bolts. Okay, what are we going to do? A, B, C, D, E. And this was kind of like, holy crap. And then from there, maybe making some kind of decision about what to do from a standpoint of fearlessness and working with that fear.
Great. Thank you. Thanks. I feel like these calls could go on and on and on and on. And you would kill me if we did that. So they do have to end. So we just have a 3 minutes, and I'd like if we could do a checkout. So maybe we'll just keep it to 3 words each for the checkout, and then I'll tell you, and then I'll let you know what will happen with this call. So John?
Energized, nourished, and informed.
Keith?
Appreciating these gatherings.
Lou?
Thankful and feeling not so alone.
Good. Carol? Uh-oh, you were muted, Carol.
In it for the long term.
Sue?
Good to be together.
Lisa?
Keeping on, keeping on.
Amy?
Community, action, gratitude.
And Ed?
Curious and grateful, and also community.
Mine are thank you all. Yeah, thank you. I'm just so appreciative of you out there on the front lines. So these calls have been recorded, and have been sent out, and they're all posted somewhere. So what I'm going to do now is that many of you have been on these calls already. So you'll know that at the end of this call, I send out an email connecting you all, and I'll put the recording of this call in that email. But what I'm also going to do is send an email to all the attendees of all 4 calls with all 4 recordings, and probably Google Docs and things like that. So everything will be there. But later today or tomorrow, just all of us you'll receive the recording for this one, and each other's emails, so that you can be in touch with each other going forward, which I think people are finding helpful. Good. And then I'll have more of these calls coming up. I'm thinking about whether or not to have them in December because of the holidays. People get busy, or maybe just restarting in January. So how many thumbs up for December? How many thumbs up for waiting till January? Okay, so I'll wait until January. And so you'll hear about more of these calls beginning in January, and you'll get all that other information. Okay. And I'm here if anybody needs anything or just wants an outside ear or a question or support. I'm here, and I'm here because of your unified giving. That's why I'm here. That's why John is here, not as center director, but as our IT director. And our IT and our Zoom is here because of your unified giving. So I would get in a lot of trouble if I didn't, because of all this unified giving talk, just give this push around where your unified giving goes. It goes to support us so that I can keep doing this job in my not quite a living wage. So don't worry, you're not overpaying us at all. We all have other jobs too, but this is one of them, thanks to you. So thank you for your unified giving. Okay, so I'll dedicate the merit for all of us and then bow to you. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Nice to see you.